Welcome, listeners, to the Grande Bouffe, the Big Feast, with myself, Cole Smithey, and this week's special co-host,
Chico Leo.
The fucking coolest name in the goddamn nation, Chico Leo. Not related to Melissa Leo.
No, but it's interesting you say that because I've actually really been enjoying I'm Dying Up Here, which is this comedy. It's on Showtime and it's about the comedy scene in LA in the 70s, and it's loosely based on Pauly Shore's mom, Mitzi Shore in the Comedy Store, and she's the main character, and she plays the Mitzi Shore character.
What movie is it?
It's a TV show, actually. It's called I'm Dying Up Here, and it's on Showtime.
Okay.
And she's fantastic in it, but I'm glad it was a sort of passion project for Jim Carrey.
Okay.
And it's based on a book that came out, but it's this fantastic show that no one's watching. So I just wanted to give that show a plug since you mentioned Melissa Leo.
Yeah, I like the Chico Leo, man. That is so fucking cool. And you are you a Leo?
I am a Leo. That's where.
See, I'm also a Leo.
Oh, look at that.
When's your birthday?
July 30th.
Wow, July 26th.
Wow, so you're right at the beginning of Leo.
No, I think it starts on the 22nd.
Okay, yeah.
So the thing about my birthday is that whenever Mick Jagger has a birthday, I know that he's exactly 20 years older than me because we share that birthday.
Right, wow, okay.
So Mick's about to turn 75.
Wow. Yeah, I share a birthday with Henry Ford and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, nice.
So, but I'm not exactly sure how much older either of them is than me. But yeah, so my big thing on my birthday is no one's ever around because everyone always takes the last weekend of July, and goes on vacation. So I identify my birthday with an empty New York.
Ooh, yeah, that's
really
good.
Weird.
That's good. That's good. So yeah, Chico Leo, man, how'd you get Chico for a name? That's such an awesome name.
So it is my my podcasting name.
Okay.
It is I joined a network about 5 years ago that sort of the guy on the Mother show had an alter ego, and so I sort of adopted that as well.
It's got a great ring to it.
Yeah. So it's I think it was a really early email address that I used. I think I came up with it for really early, in the early to mid 90s, definitely AOL, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I'm half Puerto Rican, half Jewish, and I am a Leo. And so I wanted, so I picked a name that had sort of both in there, and I was closer to a Chico.
Yeah,
back then.
Something you can sink your teeth in. I like it. It's really good. All right, so 30 Days of Night, your choice.
Yes.
For the movie that we're going to talk about this week. Why did you want to talk about 30 Days of Night?
So I think that's a movie that people should go back and that it basically deserves a second look, and it deserves more people talking about it.
Yeah.
It's certainly not John Carpenter's The Thing,
right?
But I think it's like that in that I think when people go back and rewatch it, I think it stands up to. I think it might be the best vampire movie since that mid 80s, Lost Boys, Near Dark period.
I think it's the best thing John Huston's ever done. I love John Huston as what am I saying his name?
Danny Huston, exactly.
Yeah, Danny Huston, yeah.
Danny Huston's fantastic in this.
And
he's a great actor.
And you really are it's confusing for a while. Is that Danny Huston? You don't really recognize him right away.
So it has a great cast, I think.
Well, that's the thing because when I first saw this movie, I think it came out in 2007. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
David Slade, director who did Hard Candy.
Hard Candy, exactly.
Which is the movie that broke him.
Right. And what's her face? It broke what's her face?
Ellen Page.
Yeah, Ellen Page.
Yeah, Ellen Page is so dastardly in that movie.
Yeah. No, she's great in it, and Hard Candy. And this is there's an argument that Hard Candy is a monster movie.
Yeah.
And that this is a monster movie, although it's set up very differently than.
When I thought about the setup of this movie is that it's similar to Jaws.
Well, a lot of horror movies, you establish this community, and there's something messing with the community. This one, I think...
I like the cell phones. They discovered the burned cell phone. Instead of just discovering a body on the beach, they discover a little burned area of cell phones, and off in the distance there's a ghost ship.
Right. It's a fantastic, and the setup is also so it's the cell phones, and then the dogs are murdered,
Right.
and then they're cut off. Something else is cut off, and you don't even actually see the vampires for the first 20 minutes.
Right.
And there's not even a kill. It's this. I also think it's a really, really, really economical setup, like a really good noir, and that's why I picked this movie.
Okay.
I think it's a really great film of a genre that doesn't get respect.
Right.
And
so we're in the vampire genre,
right? And I would argue it's I don't know, like I like this more than The Shape of Water, which won Best Picture. You know,
it's so funny that you have said that, because the next podcast that I'm doing is The Shape of Water.
Well, I don't mean to. I have Guillermo del Toro is someone that I'm usually disappointed by personally.
I see.
But I mean, I basically love the two movies that take place during the Spanish Civil War. But
well, there's Pan's Labyrinth,
and then the one, there's a Spanish one that
with the boys.
Yes, then it's a ghost story, and it's like a boys during the war.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that one.
I'm blanking on it. We actually talked about it on Scream Squad, one of my former podcasts, and that was another thing. So for 2 years I was the co-host of a horror podcast. So, and that ended kind of abruptly, and so I wanted to pick a horror movie. As just that.
Well, Ben Foster is in this movie. I think this movie, what I appreciated coming back to, I'm glad you reintroduced me to it, because I think that, for one thing, I think Josh Hartnett is really great.
Yeah,
he's really super solid, and any movie with Ben Foster is gonna, it's gonna have some interesting character stuff, because that guy really works the character angles. He's got the voice going, the little crazy voice going.
I think this is one of the best examples of a Ben Foster. So sometimes I totally agree with you, but sometimes there's too much Ben Foster in a movie, and I think him and his character arc really sort of messes up the remake of 3:10 to Yuma, of which the original is a favorite of mine. But
interesting.
But this one is perfect, and I agree with you. He's chewing the scenery like Rod Steiger.
Yeah.
But like Rod Steiger, sometimes Ben Foster can go awry. This is the great Rod Steiger.
Yeah.
In terms of like he's in maybe five scenes.
Yeah.
And he steals every scene that he's in, and he acts with the entire cast.
Yeah.
Well, with the exception of maybe Danny Houston in terms of stealing the scenes, because Danny Houston steals every scene that he's in.
Yes.
And I think the look and feel.
Danny Houston, by the way, is the leader of the vampire gang. He's the head honcho, and he's the badass.
Yes, and he. So I, as a kid, I have to go back also. So this is. I, as a kid, was always like, well, why don't vampires go to whatever part of the world is dark 6 months out of the time and just live like kings.
Yeah.
And we should say the premise of this movie is that Barrow, Alaska is dark for 30 days out of the year, which apparently is not true. There's somewhere that's more north than Barrow, and it only gets like it's not 30 days, but it's like 12 days or 18 days or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
And so these vampires show up, and they're like this ancient race. They have their own language, which was developed for the movie. I'm a sucker for that.
Sure.
Quest for Fire and Clockwork Orange, like the idea,
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, the idea of developing an actual language. And this one, it's based on like clicks and
it's all very shorthand.
Yeah, sort of Klingon-y, you know. And the look of the vampires comes from, it was based on a comic book.
Right.
And so they actually did take the look, but they did an extraordinary job of that. And they don't look like other vampires.
Yeah. Well, because all of their little teeth are very sharp.
Yes.
They're very sharp.
Yes. And they have sharp nails that they use to sort of make a slit sometimes, and then they'll start sucking blood from that. Oh,
that's right. They have the nails. And I did really appreciate what they did with what David Slade did with the way the movement. He makes this really jerky movement. I don't know how he did that with the camera, but there's a few scenes, especially when there's a vampire that jumps on top of the car, and it's all super jerky and hyper fast.
Absolutely. So they basically, he uses cinema like it's been used for 120, like to create this, like they're clearly not human. It makes them look superhuman or inhuman, and I agree. I mean, it's how they shot it, and it's extraordinary. I think I also want to shout out the fact that because it's based on a comic book, we're in this era where the Marvel movies are, dominating everything.
Yeah.
But it's good to remember that there are a lot of great movies based on comic books that have nothing to do with superheroes. There are some terrible ones as well.
It's also important to note that DC comic books are worth a lot more money than Marvel comic books, the old ones.
Well, because DC had a sort of 20 to 30 year head start on Marvel. You know.
But for some reason, the Sergeant Rock comics are worth a lot more.
Are they?
Yeah, than the Spider-Man comics of that day. Although the Spider-Man comics are also worth.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's too bad because I had a lot of Spider-Man comics and a fair amount of Sergeant Rock comics, and I don't have
I was so into Sergeant Rock.
Yeah,
I had a big old stack of those guys.
Yeah, they had the 80-page giants where they would 60 cents, I think. Yeah, it was just extraordinary.
Yeah,
the amount of what you could get for 60 cents back in the day.
Exactly.
But we were talking about the casting. I agree. I think Josh Hartnett is great in this.
He's so solid.
I'm not sure what happened to him because this is around the time.
Well, this is an interesting story. I studied up on his story a little bit. He got fed up with fame and the whole Hollywood thing. And he went back and bought a mansion with his childhood sweetheart. I think he's from Minnesota. I have to look it up. And it didn't go as planned. St. Paul, Minnesota. And so, that fell apart. And then he ended up marrying this British actress and moving to the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and having children. And that's his story. So he's just one of these guys who he had his. I mean,
he was A-list in the early 2000s.
Super A-list.
I mean, he was
Sin City. He had all sorts of great stuff going on.
Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, Black Hawk Down was huge.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like Black Hawk Down was sort of the height of his. Like that was like this guy's going to be the next star for like 20 years.
Yeah,
and to be honest,
he was also supposed to do. Comic book stuff. They kept trying to get him to do Superman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I can't remember who he was also in Pearl Harbor. His first.
That's right.
His first movie was Halloween H2O.
Right. Okay. I do remember. I actually snuck out of, or not snuck. I walked out of. What is it? The Baz Luhrmann, Nicole Kidman music, Moulin Rouge. I walked out of Moulin Rouge.
I don't blame you.
And walked into Pearl Harbor, and it was literally like a minute before the attack.
Oh, wow.
And so that was my experience. I saw about 5 minutes or about 15 minutes of Moulin Rouge, and then half of
Baz
Pearl Harbor.
Luhrmann.
No, but
and what he did to The Great Gatsby was just obscene.
I think most of his movies are obscenities, I
think he should be flayed, not in like a literal way, but in a Quentin Tarantino way. He should be flayed.
I actually really liked the Romeo and Juliet. That's
I
the
did
one
like
that's
Romeo plus Juliet.
Yes,
I'll give you that one.
That is an exception.
Like
there's a lot. So there's a lot of filmmakers that I hate their work.
Yeah,
but there's like two things that they've done that I think are extraordinary. Lars von Trier is also in that.
Tell me.
I mean, I think Breaking the Waves and the TV show about the hospital.
Oh yeah.
That was never finished. That they did like 2 seasons.
I saw that at the New York Film Festival. Yeah, there was it was like the Kingdom. It was like an endurance test, and I loved every minute of it.
So those two things I think are genius.
Yeah.
And I mean, my two worst experiences, like where I wanted to fight the filmmaker after I came out of a theater, were Dancer in the Dark by Lars von Trier.
Yeah.
And the other one was actually the Paul Thomas Anderson movie where the frogs come out of the sky, Magnolia.
Yeah.
Those two movies, like, I would have physically attacked the director if I had seen them, like, if I was at Cannes and they were there, and I would have gotten arrested and
That's
I would have
awesome.
went to jail.
That's
like,
awesome.
I had such rage and just like, how dare you take like 2 hours of like hundreds of thousands of people.
What about Melancholia? Did you see Melancholia?
I like Melancholia.
I love Melancholia.
Yeah, I like the first half a little more, but I think the two halves come together so well. No, I really like Melancholia. You're right.
Melancholia.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the house that Jack built because people were walking out
I know
of it
people
in
were walking
Cannes.
out of Cannes. Were you at Cannes?
No,
that was this year.
Yeah, that was this year. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did read that. I kind of agree with you. Although the one time I was at Cannes, as I told you, I saw Brown Bunny, which people were walking out of, and I think that that they made the right decision to walk out of it. So,
well, what's that Gus Van Sant movie where they're walking? It's with Casey Affleck.
Oh yeah. I couldn't even.
I watched that movie. It must have been at Film Forum or the Angelica, and people kept getting up and leaving, and I was so jealous of them because I wanted to review the movie, and I can't review a movie that I haven't sat through the whole fucking thing.
Absolutely.
And I was so envious every time somebody would get up and leave. I'd be like, fuck, you're showing me that you're better than me.
I think I watched about 15 minutes of that on cable.
Oh, it's so horrid.
And, yeah.
It's just
So
nightmare, torture.
So wait, who did we Baz Luhrmann, totally, with the exception of Romeo and Juliet. I don't understand the appeal of But we were talking about Josh Hartnett's career.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So you describe. He also was actually on another Showtime show. Not that I'm here to pimp for Showtime. It was Stars, the one that was Penny Dreadful.
Yeah, I heard he was good in that.
He was good in that. He's great.
He's a solid person.
I'll take him over Chris Pine. I'll take him over a lot of these.
I know. He's really he's got a lot of sand in the belly. But I also want to talk about her hotness, Melissa George, because I think she's Australian actress.
She is Australian.
Dropped out of high school.
She was a roller skating champion.
There you go. That's right. She dropped out of high school to be a roller skating champion. I love that.
That's about the hottest thing that someone can do. Actually.
I think so.
Yeah. I
think so. So I just want to say that because in this day and age of political correctness, I think to say a girl is hot, people would take umbrage or whatever. But I would like to point out that one of her nicknames is Gorgeous George. So
right.
There's no unquestionably, undeniably, this woman is certifiably
and frankly, I mean,
beautiful.
One of the things you could argue more unrealistic than the vampires are how good looking everyone is in this town of a few hundred people in Alaska. Absolutely no offense to our neighbors to the north there, but Melissa George is real easy on the eyes. Josh Hartnett is real easy on the eyes. Someone we started talking about this cast. Manu Bennett actually plays his deputy, and has a great arc and some great stuff. And he, I don't know if you've ever seen the Spartacus TV show, but it's one of the best things that's ever been put on TV. It's really amazing.
Wow.
And he's actually, one of the main characters of that, and he plays Al-Anon in the sort of Shannara MTV show.
Uh-huh.
And he was Azog the Defiler in the Hobbit movies. He's a full-on orc or goblin.
Wow. So he's covered up in makeup in those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But he's, a sort of sex symbol in New Zealand. So, one thing to point out, in the comic book, Josh Hartnett's character is Inuit, the sheriff. He plays the sheriff of the town, and he's Inuit.
Yeah.
And I think that people kind of got up and it wasn't as much as recently with the Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
And sort of all these things. And I actually do think Josh Hartnett has this look that actually he looks like he could be Native
American.
Those
eyes.
He has this sort of
those eyes
face.
with the way that he's got that really thin slitted eyes.
Yeah,
it's so interesting. It just makes him so watchable.
He really is very watchable. I just want to sorry, jumping around. Melissa George was she in one of those from the early 2000s? There were a couple of really great horror comedy movies like Slither, and there was one with jumping giant spiders.
I remember that movie.
Was she in one of those? Because
she was in Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, what was she in Mulholland Drive?
Which I looked it up. She was not one. Obviously, not one of the main women, but Yeah, now I'm going to go back and watch that movie. And also, I really want to talk about Mulholland Drive on the podcast. She was in the Limey.
Was she the daughter in the Limey?
I don't know.
She might have been the daughter that he's actually going back. You know, who's
probably
she was in flashbacks.
She was in the Amityville Horror,
right? With a remake.
Yeah, the remake, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But she's done a lot of TV, In Treatment, Grey's Anatomy. She works a lot. It's not like she fell off the planet. But I remember, this is back in the days of 2007, where it was always the next it girl.
Yes.
And you thought that whoever that person was going to go on to great things, and then they would somehow just vanish off the planet. There were so many of those actresses who you thought, oh my God, she's amazing. We're going to see her all the time, and it never works out that way.
I'm almost positive that when I was in summer camp in the 1984 or 85, I was in a production of Peter Pan where I played John, and the girl who played Wendy was named Melissa George. So I actually thought this might be
also
her, but
Susan,
it was
the
not.
great Susan George.
The great Susan George, absolutely.
From Straw Dogs.
And
Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry,
right? And also one of the she in Mandingo? She's in one of those like blaxploitation cockfighter, like Louisiana sleazy 70s with like an ex-football player or something. She doesn't have a huge career actually.
Yeah, but
she doesn't. Yes, well, Straw Dogs is. But
there is
a singular movie,
and there is oddly some kind of resemblance between
Susan George and Melissa George.
Yeah, these two.
Sure.
But I did want to mention that speaking of 15, the It Girl in their 15 minutes of fame, that Rachel Lee Cook went to school. They went to the same high school with Josh Hartnett.
In L.A.
In
Minnesota.
In St. Paul. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's a pretty. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I bet they don't go to their high school reunion. Not if he's in Britain. Wow, that's so. They were in school together, in Minnesota. Because you hear all these stories of 7 stars who were in the same class, but in L.A. or something like that.
I remember the whole story was really romantic. That Josh Hartnett gave up Hollywood to move back to St. Paul and get married to his high school sweetheart and buy this $2.5 million mansion in St. Paul to set up house, and then it didn't work out. Oh.
Yeah. No. I think that story applies to a lot of people. You just don't think it would apply to like a sort of hunky, movie star.
He's 6'3". Did you know that?
No,
Josh Hartnett is a big dude.
Yeah,
man. I didn't know that because even like in the movie, you don't really get that he's this towering individual. But he is.
Yeah. No. I mean, So again, I think the casting is great. I don't know. Like, I think that they actually might have cast Manu Bennett, who's half Maori, as to sort of represent like a sort of Inuit, whatever.
Yeah.
But basically, so the town of Barrow is a town that's like right by an oil refinery. I think it's one of these towns that totally services oil workers, and when the oil workers aren't there, the town is which is like Jaws.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, and the oil workers have all gone home. And this
the town drops from population 563 to 159, something like that.
Right, and it's certainly a lot less than 159 by the end.
Ooh. All right, here's my big complaint about this movie, is the lighting.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like it becomes... I hate it, and there was a whole period when movies of this era where everything was just blue lit.
Yes,
and it was the whole
Michael Mann's Miami Vice,
those underworld movies.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
Where everything just was so, it was just like a visual drone, and when someone's bleeding on snow, and I just watched The Hateful Eight again just because I could and. I can't stay away from that movie.
Right.
And I have to say, when he's following the trail of blood in the snow,
I actually walked out of The Hateful Eight. I'm like total.
That's so funny.
I've my life was changed when I was 19 and I saw Reservoir Dogs. It was like it was a life changing moment, like seeing Star Wars.
Yeah, for me too.
And recently, I would say the last it started with actually the World War II movie, but I've basically been I've gotten to the point where I'm like. I'm a former Tarantino lover and
Yeah.
now a Tarantino hater, so there's
Yeah.
even more passion
Yeah.
in it because I did love it. Like there's like I feel, I don't know. So I whether or not but I don't remember that the blood trail thing because it was
Yeah.
like that's not in the first like half hour, is it?
No.
Yeah. But I really liked what you're talking about. I liked the look of the blood in the snow, but through that blue filter.
Uh-huh.
And you are 100% right. That fits like exactly like the Underworld movies. I think Miami Vice, the Michael Mann Miami Vice had a lot of that blue.
Yeah.
Heat has
I
a lot.
hated that.
Heat
Hated
has a
it.
lot of that blue.
Heat's such an overrated movie.
It is an overrated movie, and I only figured that out actually like about 5-10 years ago.
Oh, I knew in the first fucking second I saw it. Like it's all like they so over leveraged that one fucking scene.
Oh, absolutely.
Between
De Niro and Pacino.
And Pacino, come on.
And then they made like a terrible movie together that I've never even seen, where they're both cops. So shortly after that.
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
a straight to video movie.
Yeah.
The thing is with that blue thing that
Yeah.
got replaced with that David Fincher green.
That's true.
Later,
Yep,
you know,
the panic,
and so
panic room.
yes, that blue. So here's the thing: this is a genre movie, like The Thing, like The Great Silence, that takes place in winter.
All right.
That you're not used
We
to
always
seeing.
We always talk about this. I always put everyone's feet to the fire when they say it's a genre movie. So what's your definition of genre movie?
So my definition of genre movie is: does it fit into the sort of a category? Horror, noir, detective, superhero.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna say about that, because I think that's wrong. I think that because everything's a genre, or should be, and so I think the true definition of genre film is that it's an exploitation movie. So automatically, it's something that's going to have gore or nudity, but primarily that it's low budget. That it's a B movie.
See, this is a B movie that I feel like was shot like.
But see, the reason that it isn't a B movie is because you got Josh Hartnett in
right.
it. So automatically, I think that this is like you were right before. If I was gonna throw this into a and also anytime you're talking about genres, there's genres and subgenres. So you could say, well, it's a horror movie, which it clearly is, and it's a vampire movie. So if you were going to subgenre the thing, I would say it's a vampire movie.
It is, yeah, and you're right about that because the vampire movies are like westerns. There's probably, certainly since the Hammer era, there's been like 3 or 4 vampire movies every year.
Right.
It is its own genre within that has its own. You're right about that. I guess. I mean, what I meant to say was, the Great Silence is a western that takes place in blizzard. White. It's just such an aesthetic thing that you don't see. There aren't that many vampire movies that take place against the backdrop of
snow.
Right. By the way, Insomnia, that's another one that I think uses that blue filter way too much. That's from around that time.
And who's in that? That's not Robin Williams, is it?
It's Robin Williams and Al Pacino, and it's directed by. It's a remake of a foreign film, and it's directed by Nolan, by Christopher Nolan, who I think is overrated.
So overrated.
I think he makes good movies.
We were talking.
You're
talking about like directors that you could beat up. When I saw Memento,
right,
I would have beat the shit out of that asshole. Been in the
it's
lobby.
Interesting. That's the only one of it
because that fucking movie gave me such a goddamn headache. I really had a throbbing headache by the time I walked out of that thing. I didn't care. It was so tropey.
Right.
I get it. You got your gimmick, but man, you just overplayed that thing too hard.
I thought it was. I don't know. I thought it was like an interesting storytelling device. He's clearly obsessed with like it didn't work in just the most recent one in the World War II picture.
Dunkirk.
Yeah, Dunkirk. But I sort of thought it was interesting that he has this.
I thought Dunkirk. I mean, there you go. It's a genre, right? It's a war film.
It is.
And I don't know if you've ever seen Ellen Klimov's Come and See.
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so if I could give you a copy of Come and See, I would.
Okay, yeah.
It's like 1984. It's color, but it feels like it's in black and white. It's a Russian director, Ellen Klimov, and it's Sean Penn's favorite film. That's how I was introduced to it. It was at the San Francisco Film Festival. Anyway, so when I go to a war film, I have high expectations, and man, I just felt like that was such a dog. I felt like Kenneth Branagh mumbling his lines,
Right.
and that whole thing about the one character not talking and stuff. I just felt like it was so contrived and so baloney. The whole thing was it just felt like baloney off the shelf. And he gets so much credit. Everyone's like, "Oh, we're gonna kiss Christopher Nolan's ass."
I think this is the first time that people didn't bend. I mean, I think they did before the movie came out. I mean, I think the Batman movies are all very problematic and
no,
like,
people love
storytelling-wise.
Dunkirk. What are you talking about?
Did they?
Yeah, man.
I mean, it didn't, I guess. I mean, it's one of these things where it's like, the Academy didn't really shout it out for anything. I don't know. It seemed like one of these things like Annihilation. Maybe some critics liked it, but, for the most part, it was a dog.
Yeah.
I just thought the time thing was interesting. And again, I find Tom Hardy able to act with a mask on to be pretty mesmerizing.
Love Tom Hardy.
Yeah, me too.
Love Tom Hardy.
Yeah. But so getting back to these things where you're not used to seeing the snow. So the juxtaposition of the blood in the snow through the blue lens.
Yeah.
Worked for me. It didn't work for you.
I just felt like it was too repetitive. I like variety in my movie lighting. I like to have I like to not feel claustrophobic. And this movie, I feel like, because after a while you get lulled into this. This blue miasma where you're a little sleepy. I don't want to be sleepy. I want to wake up.
Well, I also think that's a problem with film in general. I mean, it's like, especially if you've worked on films and you've been in, situations where they're lighting films. I mean, like any forest scene, in normal light, it would be pitch black. And suddenly there's like more moonlight than like any night has ever had. You know what I mean? And, I'm not talking about like E.T. where the moon is like 500 times bigger than it should be, which is in lots and lots of movies.
Yeah, well, that's Spielberg, and don't get me started on Spielberg, because that motherfucker doesn't know how to light either. That Lincoln thing, man, where you're in his house and there's that phony light coming through the windows the whole time. Come on, you're Steven Spielberg and you don't have a good lighting person? What the fuck?
I think he works fast, and I don't know. I mean, Janusz Kaminski is considered to be the, isn't he like creme de la creme of the? Or is he still, dining out on the Saving Private Ryan and? Well, I mean, he did create an entire look that has been aped in every World War II.
And another problematic movie, Saving Private Ryan. I remember when that came out and going and seeing it and thinking, how is this movie rated PG-13? Because if anyone else had made that movie, it would have been a hard R, and it should have been a hard R. There's no way you take your 12-year-old to see that, or your 10-year-old daughter to see that movie.
He was able to convince them that like this was going to be an American treasure and that people needed to be able to,
Yeah.
I think that, and you're right. Only Spielberg could have done that. I mean, he gets some perks, But this again, I think was a B movie, but done A-list. Like I'm thinking of, or at least if not A-list, it wasn't done, like they had a budget, I mean, we were talking about, so the blue lightings, like, I mean, it's like, how else can you light, night? They use blue lighting.
Yeah.
And against a backdrop of white with the red, but that worked for me.
Yeah. And also, but you ever heard of candlelight, because that glows gold.
It does, but they couldn't use candlelight in this.
Because
it would have given them away for the.
Yeah,
in fact, there is a scene that I felt they cheated. There's a whole scene where they're hiding out in an attic for like a week.
Yeah.
And they have a lantern in there, and there's like a hole that they keep peeking out through, like in the curtain, or there's the window is papered over, and it's like very clear every time they move that it would definitely shine out, and the vampires would see it. And I'm sorry, and come get it and come get them.
There's also I noticed that they wear it's the first time I've ever seen it before. Now, of course, you walk around New York City in the winter and everybody's wearing the Canada Geese,
right? Like
$1,500 coats.
Right.
And this is the first time I was ever exposed to that brand, because somebody's definitely wearing that brand.
I think she is. I might be mistaken.
Probably.
But and that just goes to show you how absurd it is that all these New Yorkers, were buying that. Like, that was the thing for about 3 years ago.
It's still the thing.
Well, it just seems absurd to me because it's meant for Arctic explorers. It's meant for people in Barrow, Alaska, where it's night for 30 days.
Right.
Like, who do you think? This is like the same thing as people who buy SUVs and live in New York.
Oh, I know. Well, now, like that's all anyone wants to buy anymore. Car companies don't make.
I know. They don't make
normal
sedans.
Yeah. Everything's a fucking SUV because people are like, I got to be higher than everybody else.
And it's the same thing with the jacket. I have to have an SUV of a jacket. I look at those people on the subway, and I hope that their armpits are getting eczema from the sweat that's dripping down. I mean, it's just so absurd and such overkill.
I agree.
And such a stupid status thing.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, great for the company, however they did that. But those coats are meant for when you're
50,
fighting vampires at 50 below.
50 below, that's right. 50 below with the wind chill. It's really cold.
Right.
Very cold.
I mean, homeless people in New York are the only people who should have those jackets.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, see, and there's another thing that I felt like they could have exploited more is how cold it is. Because you don't really get you watch this movie and it's not like like Touching the Void. I don't know if you know that movie.
I do. Yeah.
Where like I've never felt colder in my life than when I watched Touching the Void.
Well, there's another interesting filmmaker. I'll check out anything that he does, but I usually hate it.
Yeah. What else has he done? I mean, that's a docudrama. Has he done other documentaries?
Wait, is Touching the Void is the mountain climbing one?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking of Enter the Void.
Enter the Void. Gaspar Noé.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Sorry.
But what I liked about it at Cannes was everyone walked out of the Von Trier movie, The House That Jack Built, with Matt Dillon, and Gaspar Noé was just laughing about it all and saying how great he thought it was. And I if Gaspar Noé, yes, he's made some crappy movies. I'm curious why
they're all transgressive.
But they're very transgressive.
They're all very
for
transgressive.
Sure. But in his movie, it's not Touching the Void. What is his movie?
Enter the Void.
Enter the Void.
Yes. So that's
what do you think about Enter the Void?
It's actually not one of my favorites by him. I don't think that whole point of view thing ever really works.
Well, he used it in Irreversible too, right?
No, Irreversible is totally different. Irreversible is.
What do you think of Irreversible?
I actually really like it, but it's
so hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some really interesting. So Irreversible it goes backwards. There's basically 8 or 10-minute scenes.
Yeah.
And each scene, it basically, so the scene plays forward, but then the next scene is the scene that came before it.
Yeah.
And it's about a guy whose wife is raped, and he goes out to commit vengeance, and we realize that vengeance on the wrong guy.
Yeah, and it's Monica Bellucci. And
what's that? I love him, that actor, that French actor.
Yeah, and he's the son of a very famous French actor.
Yeah. I mean, most people probably just know him for being the villain in Ocean's 12, but he was in a great. He played a famous French
Brotherhood of the Wolf. Was that what?
Oh, is he in that?
Yeah,
I didn't even remember that. Yeah,
I think he's in that.
I mean, he's actually in a lot of stuff. I mean, he was in Elizabeth.
He's terrific.
He was in Eastern Promises. He's the other guy.
Yeah.
In Eastern Promises.
Yeah, I've interviewed him. He's such a nice guy, and he went to school.
Cassel. Is it something Cassel?
Yeah, Vincent Cassel.
Yeah.
He studied acting at NYU.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's great.
And of course, he was married to Monica Bellucci at the time when they made that movie.
That's right. Sort of
But I don't think I could watch that movie again. It's very painful.
I think I've seen it twice.
Wow. I think I've seen it twice too.
Whereas Dunkirk is a movie that I'll never see again.
Oh hell!
You know what I mean?
Hell no.
So I saw it in the theaters, and I was glad that I saw it, but I'll never see it again.
Right.
I don't know. One more character actor from 30 Days of Night is Mark Boone Jr.
I'm so glad you talked about it. I wanted to bring him up. He's so good.
I mean, he's in. He doesn't. I mean, I think people might recognize him from Sons of Anarchy, but he's a great character actor in a lot of really great movies.
So believable.
And yeah, he's like the what we have today, where they used to have in the Hollywood studio system in the 30s, they had these great faces, these great character actors, and occasionally they show up in movies now. Yeah, and it's a pale ghost of what it was, but he's that. Well,
that's what that's what I came.
The Ward Bond.
I can't. Say it again.
Ward Bond, who's in a lot of
right.
He's actually in more movies that have been nominated for Oscars than anyone else.
Wow.
And he's usually, he's not a lead. Like he's always.
But that's what I really
character.
that's what I enjoyed most about this movie is all the character actors, because I felt like everybody, and I have to say the special effects in this movie are terrific.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when the guy falls into that grinder, woo! That's gnarly.
There's a beheading that looks pretty good too.
No, that beheading is really with the axe. Holy shit! And also when he steps on our poor person who we just talked about steps on his head.
Oh yeah.
That's also really explicit. It feels like you're watching that happen.
Yeah, it's one of the things when you go back and watch some of the the original Hills Have Eyes or something, the low budget stuff, it can bum you out a little bit, and this doesn't have any of that,
Right.
And obviously there's lots. I mean, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is is an art film.
Oh boy.
But I do think that having a budget really helps.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a testament to what you can do with no budget.
Yes,
because it is phenomenal. There's, Tobe Hooper with that movie. I think one of the big reasons that movie was so successful was because he did so much he was able to do so much
Absolutely.
with so little, and I just don't. I don't see that. You have to have the right people that are really inspired and want to work their asses off.
There's a magic that you capture in a bottle sometimes in a movie, and sometimes you don't. Like a movie can have, how many other movies, did Michael Curtiz make with, Ingrid Bergman? Well, probably none with, but you can put together all of the elements, but it just doesn't gel the way not every Cary Grant, Alfred Hitchcock movie. Well, again, that's a bad example because they are all great. But I was going to say they're not all notorious or But all right, here's a perfect example. Denzel Washington and Tony Scott made 9 movies together, and 2 or 3 of them are amazing. 2 or 3 of them are good, and 2 or 3 of them are
totally
you know what
forgettable.
I mean? So you can put together, they might have had the same DP and the same, the same supporting cast, and it just doesn't work, same writer.
Yeah.
And so that is the thing. They caught that magic with, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and to me, I feel like they caught that magic with 30 Days of Night.
My one drawback that I have with the movie is that I just wish that there was more attention given to the vampires. Yeah. I would like to have more of a sense of, when you have a vampire movie and it's one vampire, then you're like, okay, this guy, and you get to really see what's going on with this guy. Like, is he really, a pervert? What's going on?
Right. No, I mean,
in this one, I feel like it's not told enough from the vampire's perspective. I want to know more about the history of the vampires, and I want to know more about, I want to dig the vampires. I want to I want to be on the vampire side, is what I'm telling you.
Right. I mean, I guess I sort of... I don't know. They're like an ancient. It's like a different take on vampires. But I got all that I needed to in terms of the rules. Like, they're definitely stronger. One thing that bothered me is that they weren't afraid of fire. They were afraid of light, but not fire, and that actually bothered me. Like when the vampires decide to burn the town down at the end to cover their tracks, or there are times when they're faced with fire, like things blow up.
Yeah.
And they don't react like fire is bright,
Yeah.
And they do react negatively to sun and to ultraviolet light. So that was one thing. But I sort of thought we got the rules. I thought it was one of those things.
Yeah, the rules were good.
We see them more than Bruce in Jaws, like comparing, the shark.
Right. Sure. But I just wanted to be, a little more, because of course, the ultimate vampire, Bela Lugosi.
Right.
And the thing I love about Bela is that he's such a charmer. he's got this really dark charisma that you just can't help but be. It's very seductive.
I mean, there's a sexiness to vampires that I don't know that they. I mean, there's sort of a sensualness with the way that they are, the way that they sort of move.
And also you know that it was treated as a cautionary tale about STDs.
Right. Well,
So
that was one. That's one. That for a while, because there was like the AIDS vampire movies, but
that thread goes all the way back
to Middle Ages.
It goes back to the Lugosi.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Dracula. Have you ever seen The Addiction, Abel Ferrara's movie?
I actually have not.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because obviously that's more like a drug related thing with like blood being the drug.
Yeah, I mean, that might have been 90s, not 80s. That was 90s.
Yeah, that was 95.
Yeah, but I think back to sort of the 80s vampire movies, of which like I mentioned, you had Lost Boys, but you also had Near Dark. I mean, there was the Vampire's Kiss with Nicolas Cage.
I got to go back and see that movie again. I haven't seen it since it came.
It's pretty
out.
remarkable. I mean, it's a remarkable Nicolas Cage performance.
Yeah. Well, that's back in the days when Nicolas Cage really created characters. I have a philosophy about Nicolas Cage that when he did Leaving Las Vegas, that he left everything on the field, and he said, "I'm never going to do that again." That fits into what has become an actual vampire subgenre of are they or aren't they? Uh-huh.
Martin is one. It's sorry, why am I blanking on his name? Dawn of the Dead.
Romero.
Yeah, Martin is a Romero movie where it's not clear if the guy is a vampire or not. He clearly thinks he is, but it's not clear. This one does that. There was one recently called Transfiguration, I think.
Oh, I don't know that one.
About a kid in the Coney Island projects who thinks he's a vampire.
Oh, it's a black kid, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh,
It's very slow, but
Uh-huh.
I think really good. And I think the girl who's in it is remarkable.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen her show up like one or two times since then, but she hasn't like done anything major. But I thought that was really good. So there is this genre of like, are they or aren't they vampires?
Right.
That's actually a thing.
Yeah, that's a thing.
And it's sort of an interesting. Yeah, the vampire mythos has been used for all kinds of sexuality. I mean, you had in the early 70s all the vampire lesbian movies with like sort of great soundtracks that weren't great movies, but look cool, and it was like this whole thing with there's like I think 3 vampire lesbian movies came out in like 1971.
And who could forget Blackula?
And there's Blackula, although, so I think Blackula is pretty good, but I think Blackula Scream is better.
Oh.
The sequel,
Okay.
which it has Pam Grier in it.
Yeah.
And I don't need the origin story. So
Yeah.
like Blackula has the origin story in
Yeah.
it, whereas Blackula Scream, we don't have that. Like
Right.
it's one of the things with all these superhero movies. It's like that you got to sit through the whole origin story when everybody knows that Peter Parker got bit by a radioactive spider. You know.
Right.
And so it's something almost that you have to sit through, even if you didn't already know that Peter Parker, like who cares? Like that's not what it's about.
Spider-Man 2. I've said it once. I've said it a million times. 2004. Sam Raimi. Oh, Sam Raimi, by the way, was a producer on this movie.
Oh, there you go. See, adding some class.
Yeah.
Some class and some clout.
But Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, for my money, the best superhero movie ever been made.
Wow. I mean, I actually really like the kid Tom Holland or whatever.
Yeah.
I think he captures. My problem is I'm not a huge Tobey Maguire fan, and I thought the casting in those original Spider-Man movies was atrocious. I really like Kirsten Dunst in Melancholia. I think the idea of passing her off as Mary Jane Watson is an offense. I mean, it's
Nice.
I mean, I think it's just ludicrous. And then having Emma Stone, who clearly was Mary Jane Watson, play, Gwen Stacy in the ones with the British guy, who I like a lot, and he looks like Steve Ditko's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I didn't even see the second one of those.
Yeah, no, me either.
Totally agree that the second of the Sam Raimi ones is by far and away the most superior of them.
Well, for if nothing else, just for the story arc with the subway train, the effects and stuff. It's super suspenseful.
Doc Ock. I mean, the performance by what's his face?
Molina. Alfred Molina. Oh, he's so good.
Great. And
he's
chewing
talk
the
about
scenery.
chewing
He's
scenery.
great,
Yeah. Oh my God, out of control. Out of control.
I've been thinking recently that I might.
I saw him on Broadway, by the way, with Eddie Redmayne in Red.
Oh wow!
A few years ago.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it was
yeah.
Terrific. Really great.
I might stick with that. The original Superman movie from 1979 might be, I think, the
with
best.
Marlon Brando.
Yeah, might be the best. Where Marlon Brando famously said,
Christopher Reeve.
Yes, where Marlon Brando famously said, "I'm going to play Jor-El as if he was a bagel." That
Nice.
He actually famously said that, and I
Awesome.
have no idea what that
Christopher
means.
Reeve's parents, by the way, I think they still live about 2 blocks from here.
Wow.
Yeah, 89th and Park.
I happened to work at DC Comics when he broke his back. And so DC Comics sent a card.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but they had everyone in editorials sign the card.
Yeah.
So I did sign a card that did go from DC Comics to Christopher Reeve.
That's nice.
When he was paralyzed. I mean, I'm sure if he could
Yikes.
do it all over again, he'd rather not get that card and not be paralyzed.
I have no interest in horse riding. I'm just putting it out there.
It's just such a weird thing.
I don't get it.
Yeah, and everybody's seen Gone with the Wind,
Yeah.
You see what happens.
Yeah.
And
Horses.
that was a pony.
Yeah, those are they're frightening beasts.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
I would have liked to have seen the dogs more, speaking of animals, in 30 Days of Night.
I agree.
You
I
know,
agree.
like seeing some doggone vampire stuff.
That would have been really hot.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that idea. Vampire dogs. Yeah, what happened to that? Come on, they should have turned into vampires. All right, so before we go, because I was remiss in getting around to talking about the beer, but we did drink. Each of us consumed an entire torpedo. I thought torpedo would be good because and it's Sierra Nevada and there's lots of snow there, and so if you could fire a torpedo at your vampire rival, you'd be better off. Anyway, it's an extra IPA. Sierra Nevada's one of the old school breweries, 7.2, nice and bitter.
I think they might be the largest of the microbreweries. If I might be mistaken in that. I love Sierra Nevada.
I do too.
And I like I drink the torpedo. It's got a kick.
Yes, it does.
But sometimes sometimes they've gone overboard lately, and this is just sort of the right, just right in the Goldilocks story or whatever, not too hoppy and not too, So I applaud the choice of the torpedo. I think it's a great beer to talk about movies too.
Yes, definitely. And you can see where it's from, right?
Chico, of course. Of course, I forgot. Yes, exactly.
So there's a little subtle messaging going on there. We got Chico Leo on the podcast.
Yeah, I've got to get out to Chico, California.
Drinking a beer from Chico, California. I've been to Chico a couple times. Nice college town.
I met a woman from Chico once.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
But we were talking about acting days. I did an English mime version of it was Robin Hood and A Christmas Carol.
Ah,
and so
combined.
Yeah, they were both two. It was 2-man production.
Wow.
So this guy Todd Frazier and myself would go around to all of these elementary schools all around Northern California and do. I don't know. I guess we did do both shows for each one. So we had like the set where you turn it around and then it's the other set.
Right, and you'd go from A Christmas Carol to Robin Hood.
That's right, exactly. So
right.
So he was Robin Hood, and I was
12th century England and 19th century England back to back.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and then he was Scrooge and I was all the ghosts.
Right. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then in Robin Hood, was he Robin and you were Marion, or the other way around?
he was Robin and I was Friar Tuck, and I guess maybe I was primarily Friar Tuck. But no, it was like a whole bunch of different characters. It was I had to be all the characters basically. He was the one character, and I was all of the and I was the multiple characters.
Right, exactly, which is the more fun.
Yeah, more fun.
Absolutely more fun. Who
yeah.
wants to be Hamlet when you could be everybody else?
Exactly. So it's a pretty crazy idea of how to, I have to say the woman who put it on, I don't think she was very pleased with us because we were both a little rowdy individuals. It was probably in my late 20s.
Right, and you've mellowed since then.
I've mellowed considerably, but
right.
not as much as some people would like, probably.
Well,
But it's been such a pleasure to have you on Le Grande Bouffe.
It's been an enormous pleasure to be here. I just wanted to say I am planning. You mentioned our birthdays earlier. Yours will be a few days before mine.
Yeah.
But I am actually planning on launching a new podcast, which is currently without a name because I think a name is very important. Although I've mapped out like 20 episodes, and so if you've liked what I've had to say here, follow me the Chico Leo on Twitter. And I will let you know more about that. And thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. And so I invite all of my listeners to please just dial up Cole Smithey on Patreon. If you could cash out, I don't know, $5 or $10 a month, that would be awesome, just to show your support for this lovely podcast, which this is episode 107.
Wow.
And please remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, riding a bicycle, or watching a movie. Le Grande Bouffe, The Big Feast is a production of Smart New Media.